Okay, I think we are live now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mission Top. Mission Top is a farmstead and ranch. It is a family, and it is a place for cultivating philosophia. And today we're going to be concentrating a little bit more on that farmstead and ranch aspect of things. This is a little different. We're delving into the imminently practical today. Most of these streams have been part of this 90-day project of streaming, which is ending up next week, have been focused on life in general, on philosophical topics, on manhood, etc. But just circumstances as of late surrounding my life have led to some basic insights that I think might be useful to other people. And so I decided to make it about that. I was going to do today on kind of a follow-up on change and habit formation, as I've been studying that this week and looking to get out a video on that by the end of the week or early next week. But as I was preparing that this morning, and I had these very same knives that you see here in the right in front of me on my desk, and in as much as I had just so many thoughts about them going through my mind, I said, there's got to be some people, at least out there, that might value knowing a few of the things that I have just learned as I've delved into this world of knives recently in my kind of journey of delving into animal husbandry, raising my own animals, and just barely getting to the point where I am harvesting them and slaughtering them. And I'm going to be doing that today. I have a youth group coming over, and for the second time in about a week, we're going to get one of our lambs. We're going to slaughter it. We're going to eviscerate it and skin it. And so I've been preparing these knives, and yesterday had a big score that I think will be useful as far as how I got these knives for $20 and what kind of knives they are that will be useful for at least some of you to know more about. In this, I'm not claiming to be any sort of knife expert. I'm very much, what I claim in here, I am getting started. But in as much as the great majority of people are even less experienced as I am, especially in today's day and age, I think my initial knowledge of getting started will be useful, at least to some. So, the basic thing that I've learned here living on this farmstead and ranch for a little less than a year now, about 9 months, is the importance of sharp hand tools. One thing that we are pursuing here is to use power tools as little as possible. Not because I don't recognize them as more efficient and capable of doing more things, but as I've kind of experimented both with power tools and hand tools, I've come to, and tried to pay attention, I've come to learn that using hand tools is a better experience, at least in my opinion. Right? The way that things are in your hand, the way that you're more in contact with the objects that you're working with, I just think makes for a better experience. In essence, a better life. That's some of the things I think we've sacrificed in this modern world is we've moved to things that are more efficient and yet don't necessarily make our lives better in the long run. You can argue that, of course, that the efficiencies bring us more things and nicer things and get jobs done quicker and things like that. But if it doesn't enhance the quality of our lives, then what was really the point? And that's kind of what I've learned with most hand tools. It's not to say we'll never use power tools here, but on the whole, as we've been doing forestry, as we've been doing yard work and things like that, I've come to prefer these hand tools much more. And so getting into this world of hand tools, I have very much been faced with that principle, that sharpness in hand tools, in as much as so many deal with sharpness, whether it's hedge trimmers, whether it's loppers, whether it's knives or axes, that having these things be sharp and having the quality of the tool be good makes all the difference. You've probably heard the famous Abraham Lincoln quote that give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And that really has rung true here. If you have a good quality tool and you've taken the time, if it's a sharp tool, to make it razor sharp if you can, the experience of using that tool is really, it's a pleasure, right? It's something as funny as it sounds, it's life enhancing to use a tool like that. It's thrilling in a sense. And so in the few instances so far that I have skinned a lamb, the first experience being in the winter where we had one lamb die because it was sick and it got stuck in the fence, and I decided to skin it just to try these skills. I was imminently confronted with this fact as I tried to use a knife to skin it. And so watching the person that I learned from, who I will give all the credit to as far as the knowledge that I've acquired so far, his name is Brandon, and he goes by the Farmstead Meatsmith. I definitely recommend his knowledge base, which you can find at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, I believe. He has a YouTube channel as well. Check him out, and that's where what led me to get these knives that I'm about to talk about. But anyway, I did as much as I could to copy him, but my tool, my knife, I thought it was sharp, and learned in the course of that skinning that it was a frustration because it was not nearly sharp enough. And so just the other day, then I tried to get a knife as sharp as I could, and things went better when I was skinning a lamb for the first time, but I could tell that I wasn't quite there yet. And so here's where this, kind of life hack tip comes in, as far as how I was able to acquire some excellent knives for very cheap and then get them very sharp. So the Farmstead Meatsmith has as one of his recommendations that you, especially when you're getting started and you want to have a good cadre of knives, then other people can help you and things like that, that you actually go and try to get antique or used knives that may be anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 years old, and that you try to find them in that used state, especially in secondhand stores or whatnot. So yesterday I was out there driving around, and I realized that just 15 minutes away from me in a local town, there is a secondhand store that I hadn't checked out. I went in there, and lo and behold, they had a copious supply of these kinds of knives that I was looking for. So the exact style of knife that I'm talking about, that I think are most useful for what I put in the title, for the kitchen or for butchery, such as skinning or then actually doing the butchery of the animal, are knives that are old kitchen knives that are made with high carbon content steel. And you'll be able to tell these kinds of knives, all of them are such that I have in the picture, because of kind of their darker cast in steel. They kind of oxidize or get a film on them, not exactly a rust, but kind of a film or covering on them that's darker and different from something like this, which is a stainless steel knife. Okay, and the reason these knives are such a treasure, and then what the beautiful thing is that they're oftentimes cheap. The reason they're such a treasure is for a couple fold reasons. One is just, I think they're more beautiful. All right, here's my more modern knife, Chicago cutlery, just kind of your run-of-the-mill kitchen knife, here with a run-of-the-mill kind of kitchen handle that you have. You compare that to this with the weathering, with the wooden handle especially, and if I had to judge, this is just my opinion, but this one, the older one, is more beautiful. And again, beauty comes into our experience in life, using things, and goes to that quality of life of using things. And so if you can get the beauty and the utility, well, then go for both, right? So they're more beautiful. But the next thing about them is that as you learn about these modern knives, the kind that we all buy in the kitchen, you buy at Target or something like that, the thing that you learn is that most of them have now been made with the understanding that it is not likely that anybody's actually ever going to sharpen this, right? Because let's face it, most of us, we buy a knife, we just use it in our kitchen, we don't know the difference between sharp and not. And so the knife manufacturers make these knives now with the understanding that people are not likely to sharpen them. So they look nice enough, the stainless steel and whatnot, and then maybe give them bevels and things that just make it look like a nice knife. But the truth is that they've kind of been designed under the understanding that you're less likely to sharpen them, and thus these are more difficult to get really sharp. come to find. The way that they make the shape of the knife, especially as it approaches the blade, is not as thin as it could be. It's, again, they're designed to be just more durable. And so you contrast that with these old knives, and you see on most of these there's little to no kind of contour to the blade, and as the blade comes to the end, they on the whole are kind of much more thin than this other knife that I had. And so what that makes is for, if you want something to get sharp, it's essentially from what I've learned so far, just a basic principle that there at the edge, you're looking for something kind of fairly thin to go even thinner. If you have a big, block of a knife, and then at the very end, only at the very edge there, are you getting it to kind of come together, that's not going to be as sharp as if you have something that is, much more thinner towards the end, and then you bring it right there to the sharp point. And that's going to cut much better. So, yeah, these knives were made under the understanding, as we think to our grandfathers and beyond, that people knew how to sharpen and were likely to sharpen them, and so they were made to be more sharpenable knives. And that's very much been my experience so far. So, yesterday, as I went in this secondhand store, I was able to find, 5 knives. Most of them were listed for $20. I believe one was $2. So here we go. All 5 of these knives right here. And when I got to the counter, they said, we'll take off that $2 and we'll just give you them for $20. And already many of them were, a little bit sharp, at least as sharp as you would find a knife in most people's kitchen today. But of course, as I said, what I was looking is to get a knife much more sharper than that, because for today, just a few hours from now, I need to be able to skin this lamb, and it is so much easier and so much more pleasurable with a sharp knife. So yesterday I took this one. This one seemed to be about the right length and just the right feel. And again, it just feels nice. This wooden handle, it's kind of worn in, and it's just a pleasure to hold. We've been over this before a little bit on this channel, but there is a magic underlying certain objects in the world, and the more that things were made with a craft, or the more you get to kind of more natural materials like wood, and even things, the way that things feel in your hand, the way that textures and things like that. Objects can be enchanted, can be magical, and this one, it definitely felt right. So I spent about half an hour yesterday sharpening it, and I'm going to have to probably spend a good half an hour on each of these knives to get them to an initial level of sharpness that I then will be able to maintain rather quickly. And sharpening is a whole nother thing. That's one that I'll leave you. There are copious resources on YouTube on how to sharpen knives and all sorts of different methods. My preferred one that, again, I also was referenced to by the Farmstead Meatsmith was from a gentleman named Murray Carter, who has a whole company and method, but he has this 2-hour long sharpening fundamentals video that I highly recommend. So if you just Google Murray Carter sharpening, it will come up. And again, it's a 2-hour long video. It looks like it was made kind of in the early 2000s or 90s, so you get that vibe to it. It does appear a little bit old, but the skills are just as timeless as ever. And so what he does is teaches you how using whetstones. And so those are something like this. There's many different styles. You can get ones that are kind of 2 stones combined into one. These are the ones that I've gotten recently, but I had them before. So I'm cheating a little bit with that $20. The knives were $20. These are a little bit more. I don't think either of these was more than $20 each. But you can learn how to sharpen a knife. But again, whetstones aren't the only way. And then even off of his method, he has a certain method, but plenty of other people have different methods on other whetstones. And so that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But I did at least want to show you how, like, in the course of a day, I was able to get these knives for $20, bring it home, and in about half an hour's time, bring it to a level of sharpness that is at least much sharper than I've got anything before. And so I feel at least more confident and excited going into today's butchery with the lamb. So to give an example, this one again was one I was considering kind of using and helping me, which was just this basic, probably $5 kitchen knife, Chicago cutlery, something purchased at Target. It took me about at least another half an hour to sharpen it, and the sharpest I could get it was something that, it's reasonably sharp. It does cut through paper like this, but the cut on it doesn't always work, and you kind of have to get it just right. There's definitely just a lot more tension as I try to cut through things on that. To just give you an example, this is kind of more dull knife, one of these that I haven't sharpened at all, and it can't cut at all. Cutting paper isn't the only way to test sharpness, but it at least is useful to kind of show you in this video. Actually, before I show you this one, how sharp I've been able to get this one, it's also worth mentioning one thing that Murray Carter teaches you is a 3-finger method for testing blade sharpness that has come to be very useful, and it's something that you kind of develop over time, your sense of it. So the way that you can test sharpness better than any other is that you actually take one finger and put it back on the blade of a knife like this, and you take 3 other fingers from the same hand and put it on the very blade of the knife itself. And so far I haven't encountered a blade that just by resting your fingers on there you're going to cut yourself or anything like that, and it's very light because you've got this other finger on the other side. But what you do is you put it there and just barely begin to move your fingers along there. Okay, just little bit tiny movements back and forth, and especially when you're sharpening it with the stone, you'll be able to feel if it's a sharp knife, something that almost feels like shark teeth or sandpaper, kind of just very fine kind of gripping going on with your fingers along the knife. That gives you the indication that it's sharp, because it's actually even kind of cutting some little layer of your skin, but not enough at all to draw blood. And so that is the way to test a knife. Whereas with like any of these knives that I've got, when you put your fingers like that, you can run them up and down, no problem. So my guess would be almost any knife, or pretty much any knife in your kitchen, you can go up and down like that all you want on that knife. Again, you're not pressing down into the knife, you're just running your finger along there, nothing. But when it is sharp, boom, you feel a gripping there. And so I'm still kind of a novice even at feeling this, because it's something that, again, you develop over time, and that's what I like about it. There's a craft to it. But already in the course, especially once you're there, you're sharpening with the whetstone and you're testing constantly, trying to feel what state you're getting it to. I've at least grown in that ability. So anyway, little tip there to help you. So this is the knife I sharpened yesterday, and you'll be able to see, compared to that other knife, this one just, goes through paper so much better than that other one. I can probably get this one, better in the future, because to this point I've only sharpened maybe seven times, gone through the whole process, and each time has gotten better. And what they tell you, like in the video, is it's going to be 15 to 20 till you really feel like you can just get it in a space of 20 minutes or something to that state of sharpness that you really want. But already, after 6, that is so much better than I did before. And again, today I think I'm going to have a much better experience butchering the lamb with this, especially that skinning part. To give you another comparison, here is a nicer kitchen knife that I did have on hand from a few years ago when I bought. This is the one that Anthony Bourdain always recommended, just a basic chef's knife. It's a Japanese knife. The brand is Global. And to give you a comparison, this one is known as not the finest kitchen knife in the world that you can buy, but a very good one that a lot of chefs rely on. And these Japanese knives are known for being, again, real thin at the edge so that you can get them sharper. Now that I've learned how to sharpen this one too, I've gotten fairly sharp. So just to give you a comparison of how sharp that other one got, that was the $5 knife. This is over $100 knife. And again, it kind of has that same quality of sharpness. This is the one I'm going to use today to actually make the cut across the lamb's throat to initially slaughter the lamb today. But again, I show you that to show you this is how sharp I got this knife, which is a nice knife. It was like $125 or $130 or something like that. Bought a few years ago. Whereas this one, again, secondhand store yesterday for $5, or actually with the discount down to like $4, and it's just as good of a knife. We'll see if they hold their edge as long or things like that. But from what I understand, again, these carbon steel knives are just fantastic, and you can get them for, you can almost say pennies on the dollar at these places. And so I still need to sharpen up these other ones. This one does have a little bit of rust on it because carbon steel has that ability to rust, at least some forms. I need to sharpen these up, but I'm confident now that I'm going to be able to do that. And again, it's a fantastic find to just get started in this butchery. So I hope that is helpful to you if you're also looking to get started, whether it's just stocking up your kitchen, or whether it's like me that you're looking to get into home butchery or anything else. I mean, there's so many uses for knives. And so, yeah, that one thing, a little bit of tip with that. It's not just secondhand stores. Of course, all these kind of used things you can find online. So I bought one of these in the past off of eBay, I think it was, and it was something like $15. So that's where, I'm kind of recommending the secondhand store even more than eBay, because you're paying for shipping and things like that, and you can't really, tell if the knife's a little bit bent or things like that. So yeah, look it up. I'm not sure if you're going to find these in kind of charity, kind of thrift stores. You're going to have to look for more kind of used and maybe antique stores. Antique, you might find them a little more expensive, right? But kind of secondhand store is particularly where you're looking at, where you have used tools, where you have used, used cookery, used tools, used flatware, sports equipment, all those kind of things is I think where you're going to be successful finding these kinds of knives. And yeah, why pay hundreds of dollars for the knives? I mean, once we're experts and master knife users and things like that, of course, more expensive knives, there's a fun in that, and getting something that's this artfully crafted thing from Japan or from Germany or something like that. But why not start off with something that you can get for $2, $5, $10 that does essentially just as good of a job as anything else. So this was a different stream today, and I hope it's at least practical and useful. Again, this is a 90-day project of streaming for those of you that are seeing this for the first time, where it was a challenge to myself to get a bunch of content in a more developed form to then turn into video essays and more better produced videos that I do also on this channel, and get those to a further state. And it's been a great project, but one I'm looking forward to being done with, because it has been a challenge as well. So you're welcome to check out any of these other live stream videos. There's also video essays on this channel, particularly dealing with movies that tie into manhood, that tie into basic pursuit of wisdom in life. So there's those kind of videos of if you are interested. Also, again, this is a farmstead and ranch, so from time to time we do update videos as a family as to what we are doing on this farmstead and how we are developing in that process. So if you're joining us for the first time, thanks for being here, and I hope you've liked this content. If you are a regular listener or watcher of these things, hopefully this little skill was useful to you and maybe motivating to get you interested in your own sharp things within your domain of whether you have a house, apartment, anything, sharp tools, whether it's knives, axes, garden tools, etc. Making that little plug that they, in their kind of perfected sharpness or razor sharpness, become something else entirely. And I welcome you to kind of delve into that process, especially when you're the person sharpening it, of learning the joy of using a sharp tool. That is all I had to say for today. And again, we'll be back tomorrow, probably more with a regular stream, but I wanted to try this more practical one out. So this is Gary signing off for today from Mission Top. Hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you may be in the world. Thanks.